Welcome to News Edge, your sharpest source for daily headlines and deep dives. If you're new here, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and stay ahead of the curve. On September 9, 2025, the war between Russia and Ukraine reached a new shocking milestone. The conflict, which had raged for years across fields, cities, and borderlands, suddenly took a dramatic turn that no one could have predicted. The world awoke to headlines that would change the course of the war, and perhaps history itself. For the first time, the Black Sea resort city of Sochi, home to President Vladimir Putin's prized summer residence, was struck by Ukrainian drones. The tranquil night air was shattered by the distant hum of engines and the sudden flashes of explosions along the coast, sending shockwaves through the city and the nation. Air raid sirens blared 3 times, echoing through the streets and waking residents from their sleep. The alarms were a chilling reminder that nowhere in Russia, not even Putin's retreat, was safe anymore. For many, it was the first time they had heard such warnings in a place once considered untouchable. Sochi, once a symbol of Russian prestige and the site of the 2014 Winter Olympics, became a front line overnight. The city that had welcomed athletes and tourists from around the world was now marked by fear and uncertainty, its iconic landmarks cast in a new, ominous light. The attack shattered the illusion of distance from the war for ordinary Russians and the elite alike. In living rooms and luxury apartments, disbelief turned to anxiety as the reality of conflict arrived at their doorstep. The sense of security that many Russians had clung to was gone in an instant. Ukrainian forces bypassed layers of Russian air defense, delivering a psychological blow as much as a physical one. The effectiveness of the strike raised urgent questions about the strength of Russia's military shield, and whether any city could truly be protected from the reach of modern warfare. Just a day earlier, Putin had been seen at his Sochi residence, projecting confidence during a virtual BRICS summit. He appeared calm and in control, using the setting to reinforce his image as an unshakable leader. But the events of that night would cast a shadow over his carefully crafted persona. The serene image of a leader at his summer palace was violently replaced by the reality of war at his doorstep. The darkness was pierced by explosions, and the once peaceful grounds were suddenly patrolled by armed guards, their faces tense and alert. The message was clear: no one, not even Putin, was beyond the reach of this conflict. For Ukraine, this was a message of defiance. The fight would not be confined to their own soil. It was a bold statement to the world and to Russia. Ukraine would strike back, wherever and whenever it could, refusing to be intimidated or contained. For Russia, it exposed a profound vulnerability, undermining the Kremlin's narrative of control. The attack sent ripples through the halls of power, leaving officials scrambling to respond and citizens questioning the assurances they had been given for so long. The world watched, wondering how Putin would respond to this unprecedented challenge. As news spread across continents, leaders and citizens alike held their breath, aware that the events in Sochi could mark the beginning of a new and even more unpredictable phase of the war. The Sochi assault was a meticulously coordinated drone operation, representing a new level of sophistication in modern warfare. Ukrainian planners orchestrated the attack with precision, timing the launch of dozens of drones to maximize confusion and overwhelm Russian defenses. Dozens of Ukrainian UAVs swarmed the region, their engines buzzing over the Black Sea and the surrounding territories. Russian air defense systems responded with a barrage of anti-aircraft fire, later claiming to have shot down 31 drones over the Black Sea, Crimea, and Krasnodar Krai. The sky was alive with the sound of conflict, as both sides raced to outmaneuver each other. The attack was designed to overwhelm air defenses, ensuring that at least some drones would slip through the protective net and reach their intended targets. This tactic, relying on sheer numbers and unpredictable flight paths, is becoming a hallmark of drone warfare. Despite the interceptions, the consequences were tragically real. A civilian was killed when drone fragments struck his car, a stark reminder that even failed attacks can have deadly outcomes for those on the ground. 6 private homes were damaged, their windows shattered and roofs torn apart. Debris also struck a military monument in Sochi's Adlersky district, leaving scars on both the city's landscape and its collective memory. Sochi International Airport, a vital hub for the region, was forced to halt flights for over 30 minutes. The sudden shutdown paralyzed a major Russian city, stranding travelers and highlighting the vulnerability of critical infrastructure. The use of multiple drones from different directions exposed the limits of Russian air defense, revealing gaps in coverage and the immense challenge of countering a coordinated swarm attack. Even intercepted drones caused chaos and casualties, as falling debris ignited fires and sent civilians scrambling for safety. The attack highlighted the indiscriminate danger of modern warfare, where the line between military and civilian targets is increasingly blurred. For Sochi's residents, the attack was a brutal lesson. The war's reach is now everywhere, disrupting daily routines and shattering any sense of normalcy. The operation's scale and precision signaled a new phase in the conflict, one where technology and strategy are evolving rapidly, and no city can consider itself immune. For many Russians, the war was no longer distant. It was at their door, forcing families to confront the reality of a conflict that had once seemed far away. The psychological impact was immediate and profound, as fear and uncertainty spread through the population, leaving a lasting mark on the city's collective psyche. The message was clear: no place is truly safe, and the shadow of war now stretches across the Black Sea, touching lives in ways never imagined before. The true shock of the Sochi attack was not just the damage it caused, but the message it sent to the heart of Russian power. Its proximity to President Putin was impossible to ignore, raising questions about the security of Russia's most powerful man. Drones targeted Sochi, the city that houses his Bocharov-Ruchi residence, a lavish retreat and a secondary seat of Russian power, often used for critical meetings and high-level decisions. Just hours before the attack, Putin had been conducting state business from Sochi, meeting with advisors and overseeing government affairs. The strike was a chilling message. Even the most fortified leader is within reach. Flight data revealed a presidential aircraft landing in Sochi shortly before the attack, strongly suggesting Putin was in the vicinity, if not at the residence itself. This was no random strike. It was a calculated high-stakes operation, designed to send a direct warning to the Russian leader and his inner circle that nowhere is truly safe. Attacking a head of state's location marks a profound escalation, shattering long-standing, unwritten rules of war and international conduct. The strike pierced Putin's carefully crafted aura of invincibility, exposing his vulnerability not only to Russians, but to the entire world watching. Ukraine demonstrated a new level of capability, showing it could track, target, and threaten the highest echelons of Russian leadership with precision and intent. The psychological blow to the Kremlin was immense, shaking the confidence of officials and sending shockwaves through Russia's political elite. The war had reached the very foundation of Putin's authority, making it clear that even the most powerful are not beyond the reach of modern warfare. Russia's immediate response was to control the narrative and project strength. The Defense Ministry boasted of intercepting 31 drones, downplaying the damage and proximity to Putin's residence. State media framed the attack as Ukrainian terrorism, focusing on the civilian casualty and omitting the strategic implications. Behind the scenes, security services scrambled to assess how such a breach occurred. The attack forced a painful re-evaluation of Russia's air defenses and presidential security. That same night, Russia retaliated with a massive drone and missile barrage on Ukraine, launching 84 drones. The cycle of attack and retaliation escalated, highlighting both sides' vulnerabilities. The war's tempo and stakes had just increased dramatically. The Sochi attack epitomizes the rise of drones in the Russia-Ukraine war. Ukraine has used UAVs to level the playing field, striking deep into Russian territory and targeting military, economic, and symbolic sites. Russia, in turn, has unleashed swarms of Iranian-designed drones to terrorize Ukrainian cities and infrastructure. Both sides are locked in a technological arms race, adapting and countering each other's innovations in real time. Ukraine's use of modified commercial and naval drones has even threatened Russia's Black Sea fleet. The Sochi strike was a targeted, high-value operation. More than just a tactical move, it was strategic psychological warfare. Drones have become the defining weapon of this conflict, making the war more unpredictable and far-reaching. The battlefield now extends far beyond the front lines. The Sochi attack has forced Putin to radically alter his security and routines. His once cherished Black Sea retreats are now seen as potential targets, not sanctuaries. Reports indicate he spends less time at Bocharov-Ruchi, sometimes sleeping on his presidential plane for safety. Putin increasingly relies on less predictable travel, including an armored train, to avoid detection and attack. The war has made him a leader in constant motion, more isolated and secretive than ever. The image of a fearless, omnipresent president has been replaced by one of caution and vulnerability. The attack confirmed that Ukrainian capabilities now threaten even the highest echelons of Russian power. Putin's security apparatus is in a state of perpetual alert. The war has imprisoned its architect, forcing him into a defensive posture. The personal cost of the conflict is now undeniable. While Sochi's elite felt the war's reach, civilians, especially in Ukraine, continue to bear the brunt. On the same night as the Sochi attack, a Russian airstrike killed over 20 people in the Ukrainian village of Yarova, most of them elderly pensioners. Russian attacks on civilian targets are a grim daily reality in Ukraine, with homes, hospitals, and infrastructure routinely hit. In Russia, the war's impact is growing, with drone strikes and evacuations in border regions. The psychological toll is mounting on both sides, but the scale of suffering in Ukraine is far greater. Ukraine's strikes target symbols and infrastructure. Russia's often devastate civilian populations. In this war, ordinary people pay the highest price. The Sochi attack was the climax of a Ukrainian campaign targeting Russian symbols of power. Since 2023, Ukraine has struck oil depots, Putin's palaces, and economic infrastructure along the Black Sea. Each attack moved closer to the heart of Russian authority, combining military disruption with psychological warfare. The strikes near Putin's Gelendzhik palace and repeated hits on Sochi sent a clear message: no asset is beyond reach. Ukraine's strategy is to unsettle the Russian elite and expose the Kremlin's vulnerabilities. The campaign has escalated, culminating in the dramatic Sochi strike. The war is now as much about symbols as territory. The Sochi drone attack is a turning point in the Russia-Ukraine war. It shattered the illusion of Russian security and brought the conflict to Putin's doorstep. For Ukraine, it was a strategic and psychological victory, proving its ability to strike at the heart of Russian power. For Russia, it was a humiliating security failure, exposing cracks in its defenses and leadership. The attack undermined Putin's strongman image and forced a reckoning within the Kremlin. The boundaries of the conflict have shifted. Now, even leaders are not safe. The world has taken notice as the risks of escalation grow. Modern warfare's unpredictability is on full display. The war is now more personal, more complex, and more dangerous than ever. The echoes of Sochi will resonate for years to come.